So ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for being here in ISPI this morning for this event on a very critical issue, that of protecting our critical infrastructure from the cyber threat. My name is Fabio Rugge. I chair the Center for Cybersecurity here in ISPI. We started probably a year ago, more or less. We have a few publications here, and we are starting to organize events. And I'm very happy that this is the first international conference that we are able to arrange. Our first launching event will be on the 29th of June, and we are very excited, but we're also very excited about the event this morning, and I would like to thank, first of all, our friends from the Netherlands that decided to join us here. It's truly a pleasure because the Netherlands is, in the field that is under discussion this morning, probably one of the champions in arranging a system of governance, which is probably the most critical element in protecting infrastructure. When we speak about cybersecurity and critical infrastructure, we always need to remember that, of course, technology is one of the main issues that is under discussion, but in fact it's a challenge that is a governmental challenge, a governance challenge, and a culture challenge. Because you see, in the last years, we have witnessed an increased level of threat to our critical infrastructure around the globe, really. And I'm not just thinking about the destructive cyber threat that was highlighted with the Stuxnet worm that was discovered in 2010. I'm also talking about, for instance, the 2014 event on the ThyssenKrupp blast furnace, or the event that occurred in April 2015 with the TV channel of France, TV 5. Not to mention, of course, the attack to the critical infrastructure of Ukraine in 2015, which, of course, highlighted how the critical infrastructure are, in fact, target of a war which is taking place globally. Critical infrastructure are something that until 15, 20 years ago were supposed to be out of reach from military operation. And in fact, we are witnessing the fact that in a struggle at the international levels, critical infrastructure might actually become one of the preferred target of choice for military operations. How else to interpret, for instance, the malware that have been found in critical infrastructure everywhere in Europe, other than weapons ready to be used, or message of element of a signaling about capabilities of states in the cyber domain, which of course strengthen, structure the deterrence posture of a country. Of course, the risk to our economy and to our societies is very relevant, and the risk to international security is very relevant, because the risk of misinterpretation, misunderstanding, unintended consequences of an attack to critical infrastructure is serious, and it is very much possible that the next war that we will witness at the international level, the next relevant crisis, will emerge from an attack to critical infrastructure. So basically, the point is, to repeat what I said at the beginning, the point is that you can actually impose standards to companies operating essential services. The NIS directive, of course, goes in that direction. But the problem is that many times critical infrastructure are using assets, ICT assets that are old. Right? So security by design is not always possible. Applying standards to this complex environment and very diverse environment might not be that easy. And in fact, the bottom line, I believe, is that resilience may not be enforced. Resilience must be built. And in order to build resilience, you need cooperation among the key stakeholders. And when I speak about cooperation, I mean a lot of things, in fact. right? Because in fact, cooperation means primarily info sharing about specific threat and about vulnerabilities and about best practices. And this is in fact also recognized by the resolution of the United Nations General Assembly of 2004, which is called Creation of a Global Culture of Cybersecurity and the Protection of Critical Information Infrastructure. But cooperation also means having the key stakeholders talk among themselves, have an occasion of exchanging views, of building together a resilient environment, right? So that means the public sector together with the private sector, and that means also involving the academia, and I'm very happy we have Professor Prinetto here who's doing a great effort in building up coordination among the academia and in support of the public choices for the, of course, end goal of achieving a better security at the national level. Cooperation also means elaborating a solid strategy for enhancing defense in the supply chain, okay? And that is very critical. This is, of course, recognized also with the NIS directive. In Italy, we have adopted lately the Decreto Gentiloni that helps us creating a validation center for the ICT assets that need to be applied and used in critical infrastructure around in Italy. Responding to a specific request, in fact, that comes from Brussels, that is growing as a very central point of gravity for all the coordination of cybersecurity policies around Europe. And of course, the cooperation means also developing a cyber threat intelligence, right? And sharing that information around the key stakeholders at the national and international level. And let me close with this observation. Cooperation requires more than everything that I said up to here, trust. Trust among the key stakeholders, because when you operate in order to strengthen cybersecurity in the private sector, in the operators, owners and operators of critical infrastructure, then you need to make them understand that it's not only economy, right? Security is a shared challenge. It's a challenge that needs to be addressed through coordination of all stakeholders. And that means that you need to make them understand that they are not playing a one-shot game, right? What cooperation may be, if you reiterate the game of cooperation a long time, then it's in everybody's interest, right, to be part of a group of exchange of information, of best practices about the threat, about the vulnerabilities that you have in that environment. And then, in fact, also training and education is fundamental, right? So it's a problem of trust, it's a problem of culture. You need to, if you want to make sure that your economy develops and follows the requirement of the Industry 4.0, and of course the world of the Internet of Things and all that, then you need to make them understand that a culture of security is essential, and training and education is essential. And so, once again, critical infrastructure protection is also, and I would say probably mainly, a question of culture of security. Yeah? Sharing culture of security, creating awareness, creating platforms to share information, and so it's a governance challenge more than everything else. Time is of the essence for this morning, but also for the implementation. We all recognize more or less in all events that when we go around the globe, the importance of protecting, strengthening critical infrastructure protection at the European level. But then we have an issue, which is execution. Our democracies need to prove that they are able to deliver, right? This is probably the best response to the stress that our Western democracies are experiencing, I would say, all around Europe. So we need to show that we do not need to go to a catastrophic event. We do not need to experience a catastrophic event before understanding that, in fact, we need to be able to deliver, to execute all the good ideas that we hear in events such like these. So, without further ado, I would like once again to thank all the participants to the event, and I would be very happy if the Consul General of the Netherlands here in Milan, Mr. Verboom, would tell us a few words. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Buongiorno a tutti, io sono, come detto, io sono Johan Verboom, Console Generale dei Paesi Bassi, arrivato qui a Milano solamente 8 mesi fa, e è un molto grande piacere per me essere qui a Milano e adesso in questo evento. It's really a pleasure to welcome all of you at this high-level conference dedicated to the protection of critical infrastructure against cyber threats. And I would like to express my appreciation to all the various institutions and companies that have made this event possible. My gratitude especially goes to ISPI, to Mr. Marguerite, the director, to Mr. Rugge. Thank you so much for the cooperation, and also to all your colleagues, and also to the very valuable speakers, of which, as we already have heard, some have even come all the way from the Netherlands. We have experts from TNO and also from the Dutch Ministry of Security and Justice and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from the Netherlands. I'm also very happy to see my good friend and Dutch Honorary Consul from Verona, Mr. Daniele Cunego. Nice to see you here in Milan again. This event is organized in the spirit of close cooperation between Italy and the Netherlands during the 2017 and 18 term of non-permanent membership of the UN Security Council. In June 2016, Italy and the Netherlands proposed to split the 2-year term as non-permanent member on the UN Security Council for the Western European Regional Group. And the decision was intended as a gesture of solidarity and European fellowship. This unique agreement between Italy and the Netherlands resulted in a joint declaration on the cooperation during this period from 2017 until the end of this year. Italy was a member of the UN Security Council in 2017, and the Netherlands has taken over in this year. And as I said, we have a strong bilateral cooperation in this. For example, we share the chair of the Sanction Committee on North Korea, very actual, with the meeting of the leaders of the US and North Korea earlier this week. And also we share the chair of the Sanction Committee on Iran. We have had and we are having many and regular bilateral consultations, Netherlands, Italy. We are exchanging information on priority issues in the Security Council right now and also on the agenda. And we are even exchanging diplomats. We now have an Italian diplomat in the Netherlands and a Dutch one in Rome. Italy and the Netherlands are maintaining a very strong and friendly relationship. But this UN Security Council cooperation is really a highlight in this relationship. The theme of cybersecurity, protecting critical infrastructure, has been chosen because it's important in itself, but it's also part of the agenda of the UN Security Council. Both for the Netherlands and for Italy, it is an essential topic because of the ongoing digitization and also internationalization when it comes to critical infrastructure. All kinds of infrastructure is involved. We can think of the energy sector, drinking water, the banking sector, security services. And this ongoing digitization and internationalization may have consequences for the vulnerability of the digital systems. and therefore also for our safety and security. I'm therefore of the opinion that this conference is very timely, it's very important, it's very relevant to exchange ideas, views, best practices, and also there is already a very good cooperation in this area between Italy and the Netherlands, but even to reinforce it, to further develop this. So again, I'm extremely happy that we are able to organize this together with ISPI. And I'm looking forward to the outcomes of this event. Again, I would like to express my appreciation to all of you for your participation, and I wish you a very nice seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Consul General. We start now with the presentation from our panel. The rules of engagement here are more or less 7 minutes for each speaker, so that we can then proceed probably to have a more interactive session at the end of the first round. So I give the word to Luigi Martino, who's professor at the Sant'Anna School of Advanced Studies, a good friend from many years. And please, Luigi, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Fabio. Presentation? Yeah. Possibile avere la presentazione? Eccola. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, thank you. I would like to thank the General Consul to invite me today, and it's my pleasure to be here because it's a very relevant topics, critical infrastructure and cybersecurity, and because critical infrastructure protection implies relevant questions such as national security or private interest and other relevant topics. Today I would like to address these specific topics related to the NIS directive framework and policy and legal implications. In particular, this is my outline. First of all, I will address how European Union improve or enhance cybersecurity in order to protect critical infrastructure, but in order to enhance cybersecurity among member states, because it's relevant to understand that we have a specific role of the European Union is a priority for the European Union. It's a strategic priority to enhance cybersecurity at the European level, but also among member states. Then I will address the specific implications of the NIS directive, in particular the main objectives and policy and legal implications of the NIS directives, and then finally I will pose some suggestions or recommendations, but we will see the challenges and opportunities related to the implementation process of the NIS directive. Then, this is the classical ENISA cyber pyramid, and these are the main threats that involve the European Union. We have a top level, we can say the fake news, maybe. It's the challenges related to the democratic process. But if we look at the critical infrastructure protection, we can see that the main actions related to the critical infrastructure protection at the European Union level is represented by the NIS directive. In particular, the operational role is covered by the ENISA. This is the agency specialized on network information security. Then, The main objectives of the NIS directive. The NIS directive is focused primarily on establishing a cooperative framework between public and private stakeholders in order to enhance critical infrastructure protection in the European Union. Okay, but the main objectives that the main result of the NIS directive are, in my opinion, revolutionary, because for the first time we have a formal role of the private sector in the context of critical infrastructure protection. When I said formal role, I said a legal role that the NIS directive recognizes for the private sector. Then the directive creates a clear legal framework, including binding guidelines to protect critical infrastructures. And finally, the European member states have the responsibility to identify the operator of essential services or vital services and digital services providers. Policy and legal implications. The NIS directive, as directive, of course, implies obligations and a responsibility for all member states. In my opinion, we have three main policy and legal implications. For the first of all, the NIS directive implies obligations for all member states to adopt a national strategy on security of network information systems. It's an obligation for all member states to have a cyber security strategy. The second one is that the NIS directive establishes binding security and notification requirements. What means that it's an obligation to improve or to create an information sharing mechanism on cyber incidents and cyber threats and cyber attacks. Last but not least, the NIS directive implies obligations for all member states to designate national competent authorities, the point of contact, in order to manage this information sharing mechanism. Okay. In conclusion, I would like to address the main challenges and opportunities related to the NIS directive implications. In my opinion, we have three main challenges related to the implementation process of the NIS directives. The first one is that we have a different cybersecurity maturity level among member states, because the state of art is that we have at the European Union level member states that have a high level of cybersecurity maturity, but we have some member states that don't have the same maturity level. The second challenge is related to the public-private partnership. In my opinion, when we talk about public-private partnership, we have to stress that we are in front of different interests, because public-private partnership involve different approach, different interests. Because if we will think about public interest, we talk about national security interest. And when we talk about private interest, we talk about business. And these are different interests. And this is a main challenge related to public-private partnership. And third, last point, but not least, is related to the lack of trust among member states. When I say standard as weapons, I refer to the capability of the national interest to use standards in order to obtain economic interest in order to obtain national interest. This is a specific problem related to the national interest that involve member states' national interests. Then we have another problem. When we talk about the information sharing mechanism, I think that this mechanism involves moral hazard because, again, this implies private or business interests. This is an important point because maybe the private actors can avoid to share information in order to defend their own interest or reputational interest, because of private actors, because of the core business is to protect their business. Then, opportunities. I think that if we consider these challenges, we have the opportunity, or we should consider this challenge as opportunity. Because if we consider the first point, maybe we can start to create cybersecurity capacity building programs in order to implement the NS directive by design. We have to consider the context, the national context of all single member states. This is my recommendation. At second level, the second point, maybe we can address the second point, promoting public-private partnership with a shared responsibility approach. What means? It means that we need to include clear obligations and accountability for public and private actors and tax exemptions in order to encourage reinvestment to research programs. When I think that we have to, as Fabio said, we have to involve not only public and private actors in the public-private partnership, but we have to involve also academia in order to start specific projects related to the capability to develop high level of high technology and security, maybe to develop specific programs in order to enhance awareness about cyber risk, cyber challenges, or maybe to create specific program in order to start with the specific cyber capacity building programs. Then, the last point, to be honest, I don't have the answer on this point. And I would like to address with you this point, this specific point, because I think that we have the opportunity to discuss friendly, but in an honest approach, because we have to understand that cybersecurity implies very relevant questions, and then we need a revolutionary approach to address these specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Luigi. Very, very interesting, very good presentation. Yes, as you said, we are discussing a threat, we are discussing a challenge, but in fact, as you rightly say, as you point out, it is in fact also an opportunity, because what you need to do in order to train and educate people about the threat and create awareness is in any case what you need to do to prepare your own country for Industry 4.0 and to embrace innovation and to embrace change. I now give the word to, and I do preemptive apologies because pronouncing Dutch names is not easy for an Italian, so sorry about that. But I give the word to Petra Nijenhuis-Timmers.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Coordinating Policy Officers at the Task Force Cyber at the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We are becoming more and more dependent on cyber for our communication and for our innovation. Also, it provides opportunities for economic and social development. We all become more dependent on the internet. It is therefore essential, actually, to ensure a free, open and secure internet. This is important on national, regional, but also on global level. We all need to be aware of vulnerabilities so that we are really able to protect ourselves from the cyber threats. This is why this is a really important event. We have the opportunity to deepen our understanding on the opportunities and the challenges. To address the challenges, greater collaboration and capacity building are very important topics on the international agenda. Building a secure cyberspace is a shared responsibility. This is the responsibility of public and private actors, academia, but also the technical community. This is why the Netherlands launched the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise in The Hague in 2015. The idea behind this forum is that we all benefit from sharing our experiences. And it is really important to take full advantage of our dynamic cyber environment. Under the forum, the Netherlands started an initiative about critical information infrastructure protection, CIIP in short. CIIP actually forms the link between cybersecurity and national security. So where cybersecurity concerns all risks in cyberspace, national security concerns all the risks to a nation. CIIP is about elements of cyberspace that create a real risk to a nation. So when these elements fail, they have a significant impact on the economy and the society. So CIIP includes all the activities that aim to ensure the continuity of critical elements of cyberspace, but also to deter the threats and minimize the impact of the incidents. So we see that nations all over the world have developed different approaches to protect their critical information infrastructure. However, several basic steps are included by all. So CIIP starts with a national security perspective, the identification of critical infrastructure in general. So only when those steps are taken, it is possible to identify a nation's critical information infrastructure and develop a CIIP policy. The dynamic nature of cyberspace makes that nations have to improve their CIIP policy continuously. So critical information infrastructure is often owned by different organizations. The CIIP playing field is very complex. So developing a CIIP policy can therefore not be done by governments alone. So CIIP activities must be supported by information sharing initiatives. So by developing CIIP is a big challenge for all the actors involved. So on an international level, the GFCE and the Meridian community have taken the initiative to develop good practices. Based on examples collected from all over the world, good practices have been developed. And these good practices support policymakers, but also other stakeholders, in the development of a CIIP policy. I have to say there is an enormous overview of good practices. I will highlight a few. So nations have many concerns but the security of information infrastructures is becoming a priority. So CIIP must be a strategic national security topic. A good practice is therefore to make CIIP a national security priority. This to address the protection of critical information infrastructure as a core element of national cybersecurity strategies. The identification of critical information infrastructure is challenging. So a good practice is to use definitions from other nations and tailor them to specific circumstances of your own country. This helps to avoid all these discussions on definitions of CII and build upon experiences of others. What is also very important, it is to involve other stakeholders during the development of a CIIP policy. A good practice is to involve all stakeholders through public-private exercises regarding cyber incidents. Joint exercises help to explore the roles of different actors related to critical information infrastructure. So what I said already, CIIP is very complex, and this makes it also really important to have effective coordination. So this is necessary for a successful policy. And a good practice, what we see in a lot of countries, is to start a coordinating body for CIIP. So what information infrastructure is critical to a nation, and it is very important, but the environment changes very quickly. So technology that is used everywhere today may be outdated next year. So maintaining insights in trends of technologies is key for effective CIIP policy. It's a good practice to keep ahead of these CII developments. Well, these are only a few of the good practices, but really important good practices. These are collected in the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise and the Meridian International Community to support policymakers from stakeholders to improve their policy. So to conclude, we work in a dynamic area, and no matter how much we can do on the national level, it is never enough. So we must join our efforts to strengthen cybersecurity and to strive for an open, free and secure cyberspace. It's time to address our cyber needs with concrete solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Petra, also for highlighting how complex it is to arrange a governance in such a dynamic and diverse environment such as that sustain critical infrastructure, and in fact how at the end of the day our end result, our goal is that of ensuring open, free and secure cyberspace, which is a value in general and which goes much more beyond the protection of the physical assets. I now will give the words to Nynke Stegink, I hope I pronounced it right. She's the coordinating policy officer for the Public-Private Cooperation at the Dutch Ministry of Justice and the National Cybersecurity Center. Thank you.
That's a very long title. Thank you very much, Fabio. Now, I have 7 minutes. I don't know whether you ever tried to tell something about public-private participation in 7 minutes. It's a challenge. So, and I need that clicker. Being a senior coordinator for public-private participation, I rather use these 7 minutes to talk to each of one of you, to get to know you, because that's what public-private participation is about. But I need to show some slides. In 1953, the Netherlands faced a very, very big crisis. We, as a very flat country, far below the sea level, we were flooded. And we faced a serious crisis with a lot of losses. So we built water management systems, we built the dikes, for which we're famous, and we used our infrastructure in a better way to face this water threat. But nowadays, we're facing a new challenge. We're facing a digital challenge. Our total industry is using techniques that can be threatened by attacks. And that is a serious threat. So we need to think about how to collaborate on that. The Dutch government decided, and is still building on this, to build a network on cybersecurity, together with our Dutch security services, our military intelligence service, our police departments, our national police, our public prosecution, sorry. So we're trying to build a governmental network, which is a part of public-private participation. Because if we understand it properly, it says public-public, private-private, and public-private participation. So it gets to the level of collaborating, because we can't do it alone anymore. So what does the Mcc do? We are a body with a national cert, and in that respect, we are the body that is there to be the point of contact when it gets to a cyber attack, which is framed in the NIST directive. We also are a 24/7 reachable organization for any public or governmental organization that is facing a cyber attack. We have forensic specialists and we have security specialists who can come over and help you out if you are in trouble. So there's many things that we can help with, and but we don't just do it ourselves. We do it in total collaboration. We do it with our academia, we do it with the technical world, and we do it with a lot of private companies who have their expertise as well. So what kind of threats are we facing? Well, when it comes to cyber, they're serious. There's a lot of money going on. There's nowadays state actors, and Fabio already mentioned the Ukraine, which was a serious attack. It's not just the kid around the block anymore who bought some malware system who can hack into yours. It's now getting into SCADA, and we should think about that. Hold on, please work. So what are our stakeholders? Well, I couldn't add any more, but I definitely tell you there are more. There's the international community and the Meridian, of which I'm a member of the steering committee on CIIP for government and international relations officials. Of course, there's the GFCE. I'm a member of the working group on CIIP and CCERTs, an international body on capacity building. But we're also facing, of course, our infrastructure that is on nuclear, of which I know Annemarie is one of the members that is advising and regulating. So we're all involved in this, this entire stakeholders world. We have interest groups, which is the public affairs people, who are really interesting to talk to, because they have a total different interest. Like you said, private sector has its own interest. So the challenge is how to get into communication with these people. And so we have built the Dutch approach. I think we're famous for it, but we'd like to expand it to other countries. It is the public-public, the private-private, and the public-private participation. It is building on trust. And that is actually not that difficult, but you have to be able to talk to each other. You have to find your common grounds. And as a government official, I do say it's possible, but you have to trust each other that there's no commercial interest, that there's no trying to get your company to go down. Cyber shouldn't be a commercial issue. We're all facing the same threat. So we're trying to build not only that your company gets more resilient, but to get a collective resilient, to build on a collective resilience, excuse me. So how do we build that in the Netherlands? And I'm lucky to say that my predecessor is sitting over there. She started with the ISEX, and it's now, we're lucky to have for many, many years already that trust of ISEX. We are a part of the international community on GFCE, on CCERTs, on IWWN, which is a crisis management international organization, and we are building ourselves a national detection network, which is totally, it's a platform on cyber threat intelligence. We're doing that in the Netherlands, but of course we need our international community. We have close relation to the liaisons, which are people that actually really can walk into our building and make use of our systems, and they're not only government officials, but they're private, and we talk to them. We talk about what kind of threats are you facing, and what do you see for our community. And then we have on the strategic level, and I think that is the interesting part, because we not only built an operational and a tactical level, but we also build it on a strategic level. We've got the NCC Council, which contains CEOs from large international companies and Dutch companies, but also government officials, and we try to give advice to our government. How should they act? If there's a new government, should they invest in cyber? We have the CEO breakfast, where we directly talk to the CEOs and ask them, what's going on? What makes you not fall asleep at night and wakes you up during the night? So to go a little bit into the ISEX, we have 20 or 16 sectors at the moment. They are collaborating on a non-commercial basis. The chair is a member, so it's not done by government. And they share information, they share lessons learned, and best practices. And because they do that under the so-called traffic light protocol, where we have the code red, orange, and green, and I hope you are familiar with it, and otherwise I suggest definitely look it up. But under the code red, they share information of breaches they had. And that is very interesting, because that's exactly the non-commercial part of the ISEC. But we're going further. We're not just looking at sectors, we're looking at the entire chain. And I won't cut the grass in front of the feet of Theo, because he's actually going to talk about that. But we are participating in it. We are doing with it together with our Schiphol Airport and the Dutch harbour in Rotterdam. And we're trying to build a chain resilience system. So what kind of challenges are we facing? And I say always, as a Dutch person, we have opportunities. We have a strategy, but how do you build, not just from legislation to non-legislation, how do you cooperate? Do you only set standards, or do you strike from communicating with the public sector? We have a challenge of cross-sectoral issues. A lot of companies are using SCADA systems. They're facing the same kind of problems. So shouldn't they talk to each other? Go. And we have the NIST directive. We have the GDPR. We all know what that means. We have serious issues about what can I share? Am I able to share? Am I willing to share? And can we multilateral collaborate? It doesn't work the way I want it. So why this story? I think in the end, we want our kids to grow up in a more safer and more secure community, to be able to use the internet in a trusted way. And to do so, we have to start collaborating on an international level between companies to say, yes, this is a challenge we can face. I mean, to do that together, we say, if you help us, you get the t-shirt, and they do it, They try to hack us, and they try to hack others, and we give them a t-shirt, and that's how we start collaborating. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nynke. That was a fantastic presentation. I always say, at the end of the day, cyber is at the core, there is the human dimension, right? So making sure that you know people, making sure that you establish point of contact, and making sure that you build trust on the idea that the only interest we are looking after is the interest of the whole, the interest of the community as a whole, right? So thank you so much. I now give the word to Professor Prinetto. He's the director of CINI, the Consorzio Interuniversitario Nazionale per l'Informatica. It's a very interesting initiative that was launched in Italy quite recently, I would say, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I would say. Yeah. He will tell us a little more. And the objective is that of creating, once again, putting at the core the human dimension and building a community among the academia. Thank you, Professor. The floor is yours.
First of all, thanks for the invitation, this very important event. I decided to spend my 7 minutes in trying to share with you an experience. Let's say, does it work? No, first it should be on. Yeah, share a success story, okay? A success story that, as we say in Italy, is più unica che rara, it's more unique than rare, okay? And in the field of cybersecurity. In Italy, I'm just trying to, how long it takes to. Okay. In Italy, there is this Italian Committee for Cybersecurity Research. What is it? It's something born on a voluntary basis that includes CINI, CNIT, and CNR. Let's say a few words about them. CNR, okay, nothing to say. Okay, CNR is the National Research Council. CINI and CNIT both are inter-university consortium, and CINI for informatics, CNIT for telecommunication, okay? And just to mention, we as a CINI include 44 public universities, CNIT involved 37. It means that practically we are covering almost the complete academia on this topic in Italy. And what we did, really it was a bottom-up approach, okay? Started on a voluntary basis. We didn't have any reason means any call or any project that you apply together, okay? The idea was, let's try to present ourselves to the publicity, to the policymaker, to the stakeholder as let's say, the academia, the ensemble of people that are working on this topic at the country level. And what's the goal, if you want? The goal is to strongly push the setup of Italian national network of interconnected competence center. Okay, this is from our point of view definitely a key aspect, and this will include 3 main say items. The first one is the National R&D, Research and Development Center in Cybersecurity. This is foreseen in the Gentiloni degree that it was mentioned before, and the Parliament and the government are going to set up it very soon. Just a couple of laws are missing to set it up. Then the second leg, a very important leg, is the regional centers in cybersecurity. We have a very recent experience in Tuscany, where all the University of Tuscany plus the CNR pushed and asked the government, the regional government, to set up a competence center in cybersecurity. Okay? The government, the local government agree, and they just signed the agreement. And this means that in Tuscany we are going to have the first center for supporting cybersecurity activities with respect to local public administration, local company, SME, and also awareness for the citizen. Okay? And this is just one of the very first regional center that we are going to have. We hope to have soon some similar center around the country. And the idea is obviously to have all these regional centers linked in a star fashion with respect to the central, the first center. And then we don't have to forget, obviously the first one is will be funded by the government, the second one is funded regionally, and then now we have these competence centers. These competence centers are in Italy funded according to the National Plan for Industry 4.0, okay, and The list has already just been published, and one specific of this competence center is devoted to cybersecurity, and at least other 2 or 3 competence centers, which are spread through all the country, are somehow linked with cybersecurity. And all these, from our point of view, are let's say, the beginning of this interconnected network of competence center in Italy. A few words, and then please stop me when I'm rushing out very quickly about some main activity, okay, that I think are important from our point of view. Community building. We mentioned before the ITASEC. ITASEC has been the National Conference on Cybersecurity. By the way, we had the gala dinner exactly in this building in February. Thanks for hosting. We have been able to, it was the second event, and we had more than 900 attendees, okay? And I think it's definitely a moment for merging and providing the possibility for different stakeholders to meet and to share experience. Then talent scouting. This is from our point of view, let's say talent scouting and workforce increase somehow. And I just want to mention this experience, cyberchallenge.it. We are at the second edition. It's currently going on. It is involving 8 universities in Italy. More than 1,900 students registered, both from high school and first couple of years of university. We selected 160 out of them, 20 per university, and they followed a very intense course during the weekend, in the evening, okay. And we had the local final last week, and we are going to have a final CTF and attack defense on the end of June here in Rome. The best one will be selected to participate to the ENISA European Cybersecurity Challenge. Okay? I think it's very important because in this way, obviously, first of all, we are looking for talent, 160 out of 1900s is, and then the fact that these students or these kids coming also from high school, the high school can be somehow, let's say, hopefully convinced that cybersecurity could be a good opportunity for them. At least they start to think to it, okay? And then, okay, quickly, frameworks, okay, we developed, framework means for us having a shared language, okay, and so we developed, starting in cooperation with NIST from USA, we developed this cybersecurity framework, and we had the customization for SME, energy domain, hospital. We are now working on other additional customization. Quickly, by the way, you have a website in which, in Italy, for instance, SME can use and access this website in order to evaluate where they are, let's say their position with respect to the framework and get some hints on how to move it. Quickly, white books, okay? I have, by the way, a copy of the white books with me. We presented last February the Italian version, and this week the English version of this Future of Cybersecurity in Italy, in which more than 120 researchers put together the expertise and providing suggestion on how to, which are the projects, which are the area in which, according to us, Italy should invest, okay, in terms of both technology to be protected, enabling technologies, cross action, and so on, okay? You have, I have some copy, I gave you some of the copy, and you can download by the website, the PDF. Very quickly, let me go. Education and awareness. Obviously, we are defining in this moment a body of knowledge for MS curricula in cybersecurity. The idea is to define what a course, a university course in cybersecurity must include, okay? And not only a specialized one, but also the basic concept or basic idea on cybersecurity for different other degrees. Continuous education, cyber hygiene, we are working on trying to push this idea and trying to cooperating with a broadcasting company to be able to say something about or to push some concept of cyber hygiene at the country level. Quickly, we also had we had an activity on cyber essential. We defined, starting again from the NIST framework, we defined the cyber essential for SME, and you can find the English version as well, and you can download it from the website. Quickly, in terms of cyber range, this is an activity we just started. The idea is to set up a network of specialized academic cyber ranges, okay? And in particular, so far, we foresee at least 3 nodes just to start. In Torino, Politecnico di Torino, we are going to cover IoT, intelligence system in general, a link between AI and cybersecurity and industrial control system, whereas in Genoa, we are going to deal particularly with a smart grid and mobile application, and in Florence, public administration. Quickly, at the end of a strategic project, we are obviously involved in the protection and resilience of both domestic supply chains, as you can imagine. I'm personally working on protection of the water supply system, for instance, and we have cooperation with some key Italian ministries for different aspects. We have also activity and protection from attack, not only cyber, but also social, physical, and cyber. And then we have a joint participation to this project. This is in response to the last recent call of the Commission, okay, on setting up a strategic network, okay. And the strange, and I definitely close here, let's say from significant aspect from my point of view is the fact that as a country, we presented ourselves as a country, okay? It means all the academia, one of the major industrial player, the government, okay, with endorsement of a couple of ministry of intelligence, say, okay, this is going to be the Italian proposal on this topic, okay? And that's it, okay? And so obviously I'm available for any question, and again, thanks for the invitation. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Prinetto. Thank you, Paolo. Fascinating presentation. I always get excited when I see that. You know, if you want to establish an ecosystem, then you don't only need a top-down approach, but you do need a bottom-up approach, right? A multi-stakeholder regime is made of people who are proactive, right? So thank you so much for your presentation. I now give the floor to Theo van Ruijven. I hope I pronounced it right. Theo, yeah, I figured that. One small request, if you could please give us also 2 lines on what TNO is, how it works, because you work there, you are senior expert of critical infrastructure protection at TNO. Fascinating experience at TNO. If you can please also give us just 1 word about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. My name is Theo van Ruijven. I'm indeed an expert on critical infrastructure protection at TNO, the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research. My colleague Annemarie will explain more about what TNO is about. I will shortly touch upon it. What I will do is I will present some insights from the research that we have done in the past 2 years on supply chain cybersecurity, which has been mentioned just by the previous speakers. And I will make the claim why cybersecurity is in need of the expertise that is available in an institute like ISPI, the political science expertise, and that's desperately needed beyond the engineering expertise. Yes, there it is. So I'm working at TNO, and we conduct research on behalf of the Dutch government, together with the private sector, and in most cases in collaboration with academia and other research institutes. There's a number of topics that we have studied in the recent years. Among them are cybersecurity information sharing for the ISACs, but also in other structures, on critical information infrastructure protection, and on supply chain cybersecurity. And I will go into the last topic because it is of major importance to critical infrastructure protection, and also because it is such a challenge to achieve. So what we have done in recent years all concerns our main research question is also what are the main challenges, and how, because we also advise the Dutch government, how can you stimulate and maintain supply chain cybersecurity? So, there we go. Yeah. So why is it so key to critical infrastructure protection? Well, most critical infrastructure structures consist of supply chains. Just think of drinking water, as was mentioned before, but also electricity, the supply of chemicals, transportation, telecommunication. None of them are provided by a single process or a single operator. They're all provided by a number of operators that operate in a sequence. So to give you some examples, in the Netherlands there's a lot of infrastructure, of course, but there are three, as we call, main ports. One is the airport of Schiphol. There's one large airport in the Netherlands, but it's quite large. It's also quite efficient. It's a large transfer airport as well. There's the seaport of Rotterdam, which is very important to the Netherlands, but it's also very important to Belgium and Germany. It's a main transfer for Europe. And there is what we call Brainport, which is the Eindhoven area, where there is a lot of the high-tech manufacturing industry. And there's, for example, the company that makes the machines, that makes microchips that we all have in our phones and iPads and other stuff. So that's also part of the economic main infrastructure of the Netherlands. There we go. So let me give you an example of a supply chain that we have studied. It's the supply chain of jet fuel to the national airport. And what does it look like on a high level? Well, of course, there's the planes that require the jet fuel on a just-in-time way. It's delivered there by trucks or a pumping system. There is jet fuel storage at the airport. There's a pipeline operator that transports the jet fuel to the airport. There is storage somewhere else, where it's stored for a longer time. There's shipment towards these storages. There's jet fuel production, both within the Netherlands and sometimes abroad. Then there's crude oil shipment to the production sites, and there's crude oil production. And all these steps need to be in place in order to get jet fuel on time at the airport. Now, why is it so difficult to maintain cybersecurity in such a supply chain? Well, it's primarily because from a national infrastructure perspective, we look at the supply chain as one process that needs to be secured. But if you look within the supply chain, you see the operators of all the different processes. They work with a customer that they provide to, and they work with their suppliers. And they have contracts and agreements about these relationships. They also manage the risk that is in these contracts and relationships, but they do not look at their process from the perspective of the supply chain as a whole. So getting the risk of disruption of the supply chain into the risk assessment of these individual supply chain organizations, well, that's the main challenge. And there are some efforts to do that, but I will explain why we found that it's so difficult to make them effective. And it's mainly because the organizations within the supply chain, there's a huge variety in how they operate and also what our main concerns are. So just to start with their concern, there are some that mainly are concerned about their operational processes. That's the organizations that operate the pipelines or the transport sites. They have a focus on these operational technologies, and their main concern is that these technologies will somehow be sabotaged or otherwise damaged. And then there's the organizations that manage the administration of the supply chain, and they are primarily concerned about their IT infrastructure and forms like ransomware and the attacks that we have witnessed in a couple of years in the port of Rotterdam, and also the attack that's spawned from the situation in the Ukraine was also an attack on the IT infrastructure, not operational infrastructure, although the consequences were operational, of course. And then there's other organizations that are mainly concerned about their data, not about their processes, but the data or the sensitive business information that they have and that they need to protect. So these different concerns make it difficult. There's also different perspectives. Some organizations have a primary perspective on counterterrorism. Certainly in the airport, there's a tradition of securing air traffic from a counterterrorism perspective, so that's their main concern. While others are focusing on hybrid threats, also, for example, in relation to the attacks from the Ukraine. But some are more concerned about cybercrime and what that does to their economic situation. And some are most concerned about safety. certainly in the jet fuel process industry, where their main concern is environmental disaster or a situation that causes damage to the environment or people. So these different perspectives makes it also difficult for these organizations to cooperate and to find each other to collaborate on cybersecurity initiatives. And then there's the difference in, there it is, in drivers. Some of their cybersecurity efforts are driven by international regulation, like the EU and the NIS directive. Some are very strong sectoral norms from the sector that they're in, so it might be the chemical sector or the transport sector. Some organizations within the supply chain are a multinational organization. They have global group policies because they work in over 60 countries, for example. So they do not determine their cybersecurity efforts on basis of a Dutch policy, but they do it on basis of the policy that they enroll worldwide for their entire operation. There may be global industrial standards, and sometimes there's just good practices that they use within their own company. So these drivers for cybersecurity differ as well. Now, why is that so interesting? What we see is that there's a lot of material available, primarily from information security and other backgrounds about supply chain cybersecurity and how to maintain or improve that. And my claim is that these approaches, on average, do not sufficiently account for the variety between supply chain organizations. So give some examples, a baseline, it's very interesting, but what the baseline says is very different for the different organizations within the supply chain. So they will also implement it differently and operationalize it differently. Same as for supply chain information sharing. It's a very interesting idea, but if organizations collect different kinds of information and they're also willing to share different sorts of information, it is a real challenge on how to make it effective when they start sharing it, because they share different things and don't know what to do with the information they receive from their supply chain partners. And another one is collective incident response. It's also a very interesting idea, bundling the expertise and using the expertise of the more advanced companies for companies that are less mature, but it can only be effective when the expertise of advanced companies is relevant for the incident that less mature companies may be facing. So that's one. So that is 3 examples of why the variety of organizations is so relevant for improving supply chain cybersecurity, and then because of critical infrastructures. So the question is not necessarily to understand more about the technology of these companies and how to improve that. The question is, how can you stimulate the coordinated action of these different organizations that have different concerns, different interests, and also different incentives? And that's not an engineering question, that's a political science question about multi-actor systems and strategic behavior in networks. So that's why I claim that political science knowledge is so much needed in critical infrastructure protection and cybersecurity in particular. So we've also adjusted our research. We have done supply chain cybersecurity research and learned a lot from it. And our next research topic on the agenda is incentives for cybersecurity, in which we try to look beyond norms and telling organizations what to do, and look on why they do things and try to, let's say, hack the incentives for cybersecurity so the companies will improve cybersecurity themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. Of course, we at the Institute for International Political Studies strongly believe that what you said is right. Political science is an essential element of cybersecurity, and this is why also we look at the international dimension of the international governance of cyber for achieving international stability, right? I now have the last speaker today, which is Annemarie Zielstra. She's the director of the Cybersecurity Resilience at TNO, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, last speaker of this morning. You had a lot of information, and well, my presentation will, on the one hand, be a wrap-up of the former speakers, and I will also focus on our way of working within TNO. TNO is an organization for applied scientific research. We have 3,000 people working at TNO, and we have 100 cybersecurity experts. So how do we work? Well, from knowledge to innovation, innovation for life. That's very important at TNO. This is the valorization chain. It's very important for us to work through the whole chain, from fundamental research to getting new products in the market. So what we say is that we work within the triple helix. We work with universities, we work with the government, and we work with the industry. So it's very important that we work towards the whole chain, the valorization chain. So from fundamental research to applied research, then we work in public-private partnerships on research topics, and at the end, as a result, we want to have new products in the market. And this is our approach. So TNO is in the middle. So we are positioned between public and private organizations, and we are positioned between research and the implementation. So we are not doing the implementation. We work with companies who do that. So we are exactly positioned in the middle as an independent organization. And what we do is to bring these partners together in the triple helix where we work together. So we work with academia, we work with industry, and of course the government on all kinds of research topics. There are 3 roles of TNO. So we work as a catalyst, also mentioned by former speakers that we have to work in ecosystems. That's what we do. There are many ecosystems, not only at the national level, also at the European level and international level, and we work with them. We bring together public and private partners in the ecosystem, and we work together. As said by the former speakers, it's not only a shared responsibility. We have to join forces in order to be upfront of the cybersecurity. So we need to work together. And we are, many of the times, we are a catalyst in all those ecosystems. So we work for the government. We do all the cybersecurity research for our Ministry of Defense. So we not only build that knowledge, but also we apply knowledge. And we work with public-private partners on national technology projects or international technology projects. We work together. We are a strategic partner for our Ministry of Security and Justice. We are a strategic partner for the police in the Netherlands. We work closely with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on all kinds of cyber capacity building topics. And we work with our Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate in the Netherlands. And of course, we work with the industry, so we also do contract research for the industry, and we work with small and medium enterprises. That's how we are positioned. So what we do is following and aligning with the Dutch policy agendas. So we have the Dutch cybersecurity agenda, recently came out in the Netherlands. We also have the National Cybersecurity Research Agenda, which was launched at the 5th of June, and we align our research with the agendas. And of course, the agendas are very broad, and the National Cybersecurity Research Agenda is it's more or less focused on the fundamental research. We said it's very important to organize the whole valorization chain from fundamental to applied research with private partners. We have to bring new products to the market. So because it's a very broad agenda, we said it's very important that we focus on specific research topics. We have to choose, because otherwise we do everything and we don't have impact. So we have to choose on which topics we are focusing. So it's a joint approach with all the departments in the Netherlands and also, of course, the industry partners. But we have to do it together. So we are in the middle of that process about joint, shared program of the research topics we want to focus on. And because of all the ecosystems, some of them are already mentioned by former speakers. We work not only with industry partners and ecosystems in the Netherlands, but also at the European level. So we work with ENISA, we work with the European Defence Agency, also with Horizon 2020. We work with the airport and the Rotterdam port together. There are all kinds of ecosystems, also with the World Economic Forum. They recently started a new initiative on a global center for cybersecurity in Geneva. We have an office in Singapore, in which we also work closely with Interpol, the cybersecurity agency, and what we do is align our research agenda with all these partners. So very important is also mentioned before the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise. They focus on cyber capacity building, and I think Italy is not yet partner or member of the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise. So I'm always very pragmatical. And I say, well, we have to roll our sleeves because we can talk hours, days, weeks, years about cybersecurity, but we have to act, we have to do something. So for that reason, we have a lot of research programs also in collaboration with these partners, and I think that's the only way to make progress, to start together, to work together, to act together. The research topics we are focused on CIP, I like to mention, critical information infrastructure protection, information sharing, of course, which is very important, the industrial IoT, cyber threat intelligence, CSIRTs and CERTs. So these are the focus topics we work on CIP. And I would like to say for which topics we can join forces between Italy and the Netherlands, because one of the reasons we are here is to see if there's room for collaboration between Italy and the Netherlands. So we have to know each other, we have to build a trust, we get to know each other, and maybe there are some topics of interest of both Italy and the Netherlands where we can join forces. And I think that's interesting discussion, and see where we can join forces and work together. So this is my last slide. I would like to add one more, and that's say, let's do it. Let's do it together and join forces. So I think that's a good start of the discussion for the rest of the morning. See if there's room, and what are the interesting topics between Italy and the Netherlands. Thank you.
Thank you, Annemarie. Really stimulating thoughts. In Italy, we have this expression that you basically find nowhere else in the world, which is sistema paese, meaning that all the elements of the society need to act together. And we do have this expression probably because we are not that good at it. Certainly, if you want to create this ecosystem you are talking about, you need to be able to celebrate diversity and have an ecosystem in which trust is at the core and everyone else find a place to exchange things and best practices. And in that respect, I think TNO is certainly a very interesting experience that we probably should benefit from. And I take your suggestion to see whether the floor has any question on or comments you would like to make. Probably maybe exactly on this idea of how we can find path for collaboration and see how we can both benefit from it. So if there are any questions or comments, that's a good moment to start.
Hi. I'm an Australian living in Italy, and I've lived in Holland before, and I do have a question, and it kind of touches on your point about the kids, Nynke, and then I would like to direct it to Paolo and Annemarie. You mentioned 1,900 students in the cybersecurity competition. Out of interest, what do you see as the impact of the brain drain of people leaving Italy because of multiple factors, because of cybersecurity jobs paying so much more in Australia, for example? If you've got 2 years of a degree, you get 150,000 per year, and in Italy you just can't afford that. Do you see a significant impact in the pipeline of skilled students in cyber? And secondly, you've got several hundred people in cybersecurity in Holland. How do you find it? Because you do have a much more robust economy to offer these types of students who are coming from different countries, including Italy. Do you see that you're able to get some of the best talent? And where do you find a balance? Where do you find collaboration with those two, competing economies?
Right.
Concerning Cyber Challenge, we have not history yet, okay? We are practically the first edition. We had last year a pilot edition in Roma Sapienza. The situation, as you mentioned, in Italy is, even worse than in other countries, let's say from the university or teaching point of view, simply because we have, first of all, we are lacking a professor, okay? Secondly, the activating degree or curriculum or track on cybersecurity is not easy because we have some constraints in terms of minimum requirement to set up this. And so in many universities, if you want to set up a track, let's say, in cybersecurity, you are forced to close something else, and you can imagine that this is not one of the easiest things. In our white book, one of our recommendations is trying to push the government to do something similar to what they did in the 70s, and a special plan for the chemistry at that time, okay? And so what we need, I think, is we need a special action for cybersecurity, okay? Where for cybersecurity means looking for a possibility of creating a new track, possibility of hiring people, okay, even from abroad if needed, and just to try to increase the workforce. Just to mention, okay, we are in a situation in which, for instance, there are several German universities which are coming to try to attract our students, not our degree, okay, not our already graduated students. Before, actually, the first, second year, join us in Germany, it is better than here, and blah, 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 okay? And so this is the situation that we have to face in this moment, okay? And obviously, you can imagine when you get a degree on that, and honestly, abroad, you get the salaries that are range from twice to 3 times. It's very hard to attract. Okay, and this is definitely, from my point of view, one of the emergencies at the country level. Very honestly and very sincerely. Okay.
Okay. Your question about the talent. Well, that's an ongoing process. We're always scouting new talent for our organization. I think we're doing quite well because many of our employees they choose for TNO because we are unique positions between the government and the industry, and we focus on societal challenges, and that's the area we scout talent who wants to work in that specific area. And we attract a lot of experts on the technical experts, the experts in the area of more organization, the processes, the governance, and also with the expertise on human factors, because for each of our research projects we have a multidisciplinary approach. Combined with experts in different domains, because we have the domain expertise on the energy, for the financial sector, food, health. So that's what TNO is. We have the different domains also, where I work in the area of defense, safety and security. So we attract people from, well, of course, also other companies, but also from the departments, from the universities. So yeah, well, it's a small network. So I think we're doing quite well at the moment. The hardest is to attract people with a technical background. That's, of course, most difficult part. So we have to think about solutions, how to organize ourselves, or in different ways as we do now to build up that technical expertise. That's the biggest challenge. Can I?
It's a joint venture opportunity because the Italian people can go over there with restrictions that they have to come back and bring the brain power and also have a JV, joint operation agreement where both factors are benefiting.
Yeah.
It's a model that we're looking at in Australia as well.
Yeah. Well, maybe from a government perspective, I may add to that it is a challenge. I think right now we're on international level building on capacity topics, of which CIIP is one of them. I think we should definitely add the human factor to it, how to create first of all, an international sort of set of skills that you should have. I know FIRST community, which is the technical experts community, is very hard working on that to get on a certain base level, more middle and expertise level. So that is an idea. The other idea which the Dutch have picked up is to create, and we're going to have a summit on that somewhere probably briefly after the summer, to have a CTI, a Cyber Threat Intelligence Analyst Summit, to create a more collaborative kind of setting, because we can't compete as a government with Apple or Microsoft. If you hack them, you have $1 billion contract. It's serious money. As a government, we can't offer that. So we have to change, and I think Fabio mentioned it right in the beginning. We have to change that culture. And I think that's how to start. So just trying to get a summit, trying to get analysts together, and create from there the younger ones at school to learn more about that. Cybersecurity is actually quite an interesting topic. They don't have it in school, so that's where we should start.
I think it goes back to, sorry, to hog the microphone, but I think looking at like dental hygiene, right? You learn to brush your teeth at the age of what, 5, 4? I don't know. Similar principle. Unless you learn it at that age, it's only going to be an elective subject, and that's for only the people who are already vested and interested. So therefore, you're still leaving behind 80% of the people. So anyway, my 2 cents.
And maybe to add to that, it's also the reason why we joined forces at the international level. So we, last years ago, we opened an office in Singapore, and we now closely working with the universities and Interpol in Singapore. So we start shared research programs, and that's where we combine our expertise and also make it bigger. Big research programs and where we working together, and that's very beneficial because we can also learn from each other. And it's also mentioned in the beginning, it's about building trust, but it's mainly also about added value and commitment. So added value for all parties involved, and that's very important. And for that reason, we're also looking for international collaboration and to start research programs. We're doing in Qatar, we're doing in Aruba. We have our offices there, but also at the European level, and maybe, for instance, also with Italy. Yeah.
When we talk about the international cooperation, we already talked about the GFC. Also within this forum, we have a special working group about education, because in every country you see this is like a very challenging topic. So also in the Netherlands, and especially for the government, it's really difficult to have this expert with this technical background, which are very, very necessary. But you see countries like India, for example, they're really making big steps on this terrain of education, and I think it's really interesting to learn from other countries which are more for. So, thank you.
Do we have other questions or remarks from the floor? Yes, I see one.
Good morning, and I just wanted to thank you very much for the very interesting debate of this morning. And as a graduate in international relations and political science here in Milan, what really has been fascinating for me is, was to listen about talking, building trust between different states and, of course, with different national interests. So my question is regarding what I think is the most challenging and aspect of what you are doing in all your domain. So what are the challenges that you always have to face when you have to, build a trust with private sectors of a different state or public sectors, or is a national government? So if you can just name a few, because I think it's the most important aspect, in order to get this organization to work really well. Thank you very much.
Well, Annemarie, I think you deserve the response.
Yeah, well, I will react on that because I think it starts with having a same way of working. I built up the ISEX structure in the Netherlands. It's about information mechanisms. And it starts with the same way of working, using same membership guidelines, using the traffic light protocol, to have the same language. Do we understand each other? And that takes time. Building trust takes time. Can take years to build that trust, but that's the beginning. So you have to start and then, organize a way of working where you can benefit for each other, where you can trust, where you can share. And of course it must be, you can only build trust in small groups. So it's about a maximum size of 25 people, where you can see each other, where you can build it trust, it's about continuity in people. So it must be the same people who attend the meeting every time. That's the only way it will work. And of course the added value. Because if there's no added value, people will not show up in the meetings anymore. So it's about building trust, it's about the same way of working, it's about added value and of course commitment. Because you have to invest. It takes time and you have to make an investment. If you don't, well, don't start with it.
And also, it takes courage because trust is just like reputation. It takes years to develop and just one instant to break everything apart, right? So it takes always considering that at the core there is the human element, right? Which you promptly said during your presentation. Yeah. Please.
I'd like to add to that from an international perspective. We have the Global Cybersecurity Summit, which is a really high-level, ministry-level summit, and it's each 4 years. And the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise is actually something that came out of that. But what you see is that trust building is definitely a part of that as well. You see the development in several countries, and I was just told that Italy has it as well, cyber diplomacy. I think so what you see is that trust building is being done on several levels, and that's the way to go forward, because it's not just one small community, but it's the vertical way approach as well. It's not just among organizations, but it's a vertical way to go forward.
Yeah. So it's not only a bottom-up approach. No. It's both a top-down and a bottom-up approach.
Luigi, would you?
Yes. Sorry. Let's throw it over.
Now, when we talk about building trust, I think that we need to clarify trust between who or among who. In the sense of that, first of all, we have to clarify our glossary in order to understand our objectives and our goals. But I give you an example, because we have a clear example at international level, okay? It's at a multilateral level, and this is the OEC informal working group on cybersecurity. Then, there are two interesting participating states that attend these informal working groups, and these participating states are the United States and Russia. Okay, when you talk about cybersecurity, you receive a completely disappointment by Russian Federation, because Russian Federation recognizes only the terms ICT, or information. What this means? That we, in my opinion, when we talk about trust, building trust, it's clear that trust is valid with like-minded states, but maybe, I don't know if it's correct, because if you think about the G7, also at the G7 level, we have a trust problem. Because if you think about the core business of trust is to share information. This is, in my opinion, my perspective. Trust is based on clear communication channel. You know? Okay, what about the information, economic relevant information, or national security information, intelligence information? Is this possible to start to build trust based on this kind of information? I don't know, I don't have idea, but I think that we need, first of all, a common glossary, and then to start specific exercise at like-minded states, and then we can start another process at the international level. But we need to improve our cooperation. When I talk about our cooperation, I talk like-minded states cooperation.
I think we have, again, Annemarie, the one to add it.
Yes, Nynke maybe from...
Oh, okay.
Well, to add to that, I mean, as you hear, we can elaborate on that for a long time, as the previous question as well. But I think, like I said, it's on several levels. So it's operational, tactical, strategic, and it's also vertical wise. One of the other ideas is a government-to-government working way. We, as the Netherlands, work, as Annemarie said, very closely to Singapore on a strategic level and on a science level. So it's more on an operational and tactical level. The Dutch government works very closely to DHS, the USA. On CRP, as I mentioned, I'm a member of the steering committee for the Meridian, which is an international community. We are very closely working together with Australia on that topic. So there's many ways you can actually build on trust. There's many communities, and you just have to sort of take all this information into who gets involved. And I think Annemarie was actually the one that says the way TNO works is to get everybody involved and to build trust, to see what the added value is. And then you can start building trust from any kind of level. Ministers can do it, diplomats can do it, and we can do it. But you have to start doing it. And I think we're talking here, and we're talking a lot, but we should actually talk to each other and see where we can start doing things. But thank you for the question anyway.
I believe maybe Theo wanted to add something? Yes.
So, thank you. Well, just to add one thing, I would like to pose two challenges to you and everyone in the room who is studying cybersecurity or graduating on a topic related to cybersecurity. If you look at trust, I think there's a lot of practical wisdom with people like Annemarie and also Nynke on building trust relationships in cybersecurity. And it's very useful to collect this experience. Also, I'm sure there are people in Italy who are doing the same sort of work, and to add their experience to the body of knowledge on trust building that is around in political science. Because this experience is very valuable and it should be incorporated there. And the other challenge is use the experience and the knowledge that is available on trust building and apply it to cybersecurity. Because the people who are doing it right now are way too busy to study this literature, but there is a lot of things known about trust building, like trust doesn't come from sitting together having dinner. Of course, that's important, but you need to be competent, so you need to trust the other party to do what you expect from the other party, and there needs to be the right motivation. And having these ingredients that are beyond trust and help you understand why collaboration and trust emerges or not are things that are already known, and they should be included in cybersecurity trust building to improve it and make it happen faster. So that's two things that I think can be done for everyone who is planning on graduating on a topic in cybersecurity.
I totally subscribe, Theo. At the end of the day, once again, in an asymmetric environment like cyberspace, it's obvious that the best strategy for those that are defending is that of making a team, partnering with those that, just like us, are defending, right? So, and once again, I'd like to close. We are on perfect timing. With what I said at the beginning, I think it's clear from the conversation that we had this morning that at the end of the day, cyber is certainly a technical issue. But it's more than that. It's, I would say, mostly a governance and a culture challenge for which we need to prepare and putting trust exactly on the core of our efforts. We now are on perfect timing. There is a networking lunch that is offered by the Dutch consulate. Thank you so much for that. And I would ask all the floor to give a round of applause to our excellent presentations here, our speakers. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for us.